Picture this. You've just crossed the finish line of your first marathon. Your arms are raised in triumph, endorphins are flooding your system. You did it, right? You're on top of the world. But then, about 3 days later, you're back to scrolling through your phone and wondering what's next. Sound familiar? Welcome to the world of goal achievement, where the destination is never quite as satisfying as we would have imagined it. But here's the plot twist. Science has been trying to tell us this for years. The real magic happens in the messy, sweaty, sometimes frustrating middle part, the journey itself. So for those of you who follow Gary Vee, he's always talking about loving the process, right? Well, there's science behind the "are we there yet" syndrome, and a reason why you need to love the process. So let's talk about something psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. I know it's a fancy name, but it's basically the observed tendency of humans to quickly return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events or even changes in life. So basically, we're like happiness boomerangs. No matter how high we soar, when we achieve something big, huge, we tend to bounce back to our baseline pretty quickly. But here's where it gets interesting. According to a study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, the anticipation of achieving a goal, it often brings more joy than the actual achievement itself. Mind-blowing, right? So think about it. Remember how excited you were planning your last vacation? All that research, the daydreaming, the countdown on your phone. That anticipation might have actually been more enjoyable than maybe the vacation itself. Especially if you're like me and spent half of it worrying about what's going on in your inbox, right? So the journey warriors, they may be onto something. Stanford research studied over 1,600 people across different cultures and found something fascinating. People who viewed their pursuits as journeys rather than a race to the finish line, they were more likely to continue positive behaviors even after reaching their goals. So the marathon runners kept running, the healthy eaters kept eating well, and the students kept learning, all because they saw that these activities as an ongoing adventure rather than one-time achievements. So why does your brain love process and love the process? So you might feel deep inside that you don't, but your body is telling you something different, right? Happiness can be found in the journey required to achieve happiness itself. And instead of picturing happiness as this final fixed goal to be achieved, we should rather picture it as the force that drives us toward the goal. So this isn't just some feel-good fluff, it's backed by neuroscience. When we're in the process of working towards something meaningful, our brains release a cocktail of all of these feel-good chemicals. We get dopamine hits from small wins along the way. We get endorphins from the effort itself and serotonin from the sense of purpose. It's like having a personal pharmacy that only accepts effort as currency. So there is kind of like a plot twist that nobody really sees coming when it comes to all of this stuff. So here's where it comes interesting. When we enjoy the process, our efforts create ripples, new relationships, new skills, new insights. These happy effects are often more rewarding than the original achievement. Once I knew someone that they started learning guitar just to impress someone that they had a crush on. And spoiler alert, it didn't work out anyway. But by the end of the time that they were giving up on trying, they realized that their romantic serenade dreams were dead, but they've fallen in love with music itself, and it caused them to make friends, maybe in a local band, and discover that creative outlet. that brought them joy for decades. So they got something good out of something they were trying to do for someone else, but the failure to achieve the original goal, it led to something infinitely better. So how can you become a journey junkie in the best way possible? So how do you rewire your goal-obsessed brain to fall in love with the process, even though you feel like it's such a struggle? So here's some science-backed strategies. The first one is celebrate the small wins. So science says that daily habits, they bring consistent happiness rather than the acquisition of things. So that morning jog, that's worth celebrating. That chapter you read, victory dance time. These micro moments of acknowledgement, they help your brain to recognize that process is the prize. How about that one? A second tip is focus on what you're becoming instead of asking, am I there yet? Did I reach my goal? Try asking, who am I becoming? The person who shows up to write 500 words every day is becoming a writer, regardless of whether they've published a bestseller yet or not. So different mindset, right? Different way of looking at things. A third tip is find your why in the how. So research has shown that experimental purchases, they tend to provide us more lasting satisfaction than the material ones because experiences are more likely to foster social communication, social connections, create lasting memories, and contribute to our personal growth. So the same principle applies to goals. The experiences and the growth along the way are more valuable than the trophy at the end. So how about that? Number 4 is embrace the mess. So perfect journeys exist only on Instagram posts and motivational posters. Real journeys, they're messy. They're full of detours, wrong turns, and unexpected pit stops. And that's exactly what makes them interesting, right? When we listen to stories from people that are famous or people that are, in the now or up and coming or on Instagram and are popular, what do they talk about? They talk a lot about the things that they did in the middle, the messes they had, the couches they slept on every night because they didn't have a place to live or they didn't have enough money in the bank to pay their bills. But when we enjoy the process, we reduce stress. Studies show that process-focused people, they have lower cortisol levels and better emotional regulation. And that comes from Harvard Business Review. When we enjoy the process, we also build discipline. It's not just about motivation. It's about showing up day after day after day, even when it's not sexy. And we enjoy the process when we feel more fulfilled. A study of the Journal of Personal and Social Psychology found that people who focus on the journey, they experience more frequent positive emotions and greater life satisfaction. Who would have thought, right? In other words, focusing on the process is like switching your brain from achievement mode to growth mode. And growth mode is where the good stuff lives. So the bottom line is this. Here's the truth bomb. Happiness is complex and a multifaceted emotion that cannot be solely attributed to the achievement of specific goals. The destination will always be a fleeting moment, but the journey, that's where you spend 99% of your time. So the next time you catch yourself white knuckling it toward your goal, take a breath, look around, notice what you're learning, who you're becoming, and how you're growing. Because the goals, they give us direction, but the journey, they give us a lot of life, right? And that's what our life is all about, is the journey and the people who are in it and the memories and all the things we're learning along the way. Remember, you're not just trying to get somewhere, you're already somewhere pretty amazing right now. So the adventure is happening right now, today, in this moment, in this process, in this beautifully imperfect journey of becoming. So now go out there and enjoy the ride. So if you found this content valuable, if you found it helpful or even entertaining, please consider sharing, please consider subscribing, and we will see you all in the next video.